Hello and welcome to the Divine in Our Time podcast, where we believe that God has not ceased to be a God of miracles. We are so happy you're here.
I'm super excited today because my dad has agreed to come on. I asked him if he wanted to come on because I know he's had a gajillion miracles in his life. So I wanted him to come on, and I'm not going to have him introduce you because I'm going to introduce you to my dad. So Pops is a very young 73. He loves reading. He loves music. He's a super talented musician. He plays the piano like a boss. He plays the trumpet. He composes. He conducts. He does everything. He's fabulous with children. He used to, he founded back when I think he founded it before I was born, but when I was little, he did Talent Sprouts. So if you ever did that growing up, people out west, he had a bunch of franchisees back in Idaho, Utah, Wyoming areas. So if you did Talent Sprouts, that was my dad who started that. Right now, he tunes pianos. So just very musical has been most of his life. He's also worked on the oil rig when he was younger. Oh, and another thing about my dad is he's an absolute perfectionist. Don't do it if you're not going to do it right. So he's the one that taught us how to sweep and how to cut onions right and how to cut tomatoes right. And what else did you teach us how to do right? Vacuuming right, wiping off the counters. Anyway, he's got a ridiculous work ethic and I love him so much. And I'm so glad he's here with me. So Dad, thank you for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I'm so glad that I get to talk to you.
I'm excited. Well, listen, let me share a couple of things, at least for starters. Let me share a couple of things about the oil rig.
Okay.
When I was attending BYU, I was a music education major. I really didn't like what I was doing.
Not because it was music, but because you didn't like
I didn't like politics in the education system.
Okay.
I didn't like taking classes that I felt like were there more to keep a professor in a job rather than to really teach.
Educate.
And I had a job working in a music store, and because I was going into band teaching, the music store put a lot of focus on, what they wanted to do was have a real aggressive band instrument rental program. So they needed a good rapport with the band teachers, and they thought, okay, we need someone with a band teacher mentality that we can kind of put out on the road, who can hobnob with the teachers so that they will send their parents to us every fall, to rent band instruments. And I got to know a lot of the band teachers around the state of Utah, and I didn't find any that liked what they did.
Really?
They liked music. They liked the kids. They just didn't like the politics. Who do I have to knows to get money to buy music or repair instruments or go on a band trip, any of those kinds of things. And so with about a year of education left, I had about a year left before I got my degree. I dropped out of school.
Mm-hmm.
I chose something that really related to music. I became a roughneck on an oil rig.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kelly, Shirley's brother, Uncle Kelly, was a driller on an oil rig, and he called and offered me a job. And so I went to work on an oil rig.
So where was the oil rig located, Dad?
And the oil rig was up above Cokeville.
That's like the southwest corner of Wyoming.
It's up on top of this mountain, dead of winter, 50 below zero, and these snowstorms would come in and they in those circumstances, they really can't afford to be plowing the roads every day. So they only plow them out once a week. So they bring in 2 crews. Each crew has 5 people in it. They bring in 2 crews, and they each work a 12-hour shift. And on the day that they plow out the roads, 2 new crews come in, and the 2 crews that have been there go out. It's called a camp job. And they have a series of they're like mobile homes, but they all lock together like a big dormitory. So you have sleeping rooms, you have a cafeteria, you have a rec room, shower rooms, that kind of thing. So I was working.
But there's just 10 of you there.
There's more than that on location, but there's only 10 guys that are running the rig. Then there's there's a couple of foremen that are there. There's what's called a company hand. There are cooks and cleaners and that kind of thing. So there's a lot.
That's a good sized operation.
Yeah, it's a good deal. But the guys who are actually doing the heavy manual labor, there's 2 crews, 5 on each crew. But even in the best of circumstances, oil rigs are dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, these locations with these rigs, what they do is they are put together and they come apart kind of like a model airplane, kind of like Legos.
Okay.
No. And so the base of the oil rig is made up of these gigantic cubes that look kind of mm, like freight cars. So you have a couple of those that are sitting almost side by side, and those are stacked 3 on top of each other. So this initial platform is about 30 feet tall. And on top of that, and they have what's called the floor. And this is where all of the roughnecks work, the oil workers. And I'll just call them hands, the floor hands. So all of these pieces come apart. The derrick, of course, it rises 130, 140, 150 feet into the air, depending on how large the oil rig is. And the derrick is where there's a block and tackle, a block and tackle thing that goes up and down in the derrick. There's a big spool, big tub that the cable that's running that, all of the cable is spooled up on or lets out. So these block and tackle, they run up and down the derrick to lift pipe in and out of the hole. And to protect the workers, when you're moving this location, you're calling it your rig down in one location. And when you get to the next location, you rig up. So you're putting all of these Lego pieces together, and the derrick and so on. Well, they have to erect, because the weather is so bad, they put up what's called wind walls around the floor. So the floor is maybe 40 feet square. And then these wind walls come in sections that are like 8 feet wide and 12 feet tall. So you have this iron framework and then this sheet metal. So each one of these wind walls, 8 feet by 12 feet, they probably weigh 1,500 pounds or more.
Yeah.
They're really heavy.
They're big.
And so they're setting the walls in place so that when the workers, when the hands actually start working on the floor, they're a little bit protected from the wind. So they don't just get blown off the floor. They're protected from the elements quite a bit by having these wind walls. Well, we were in the process of rigging up, and the derrick was already in place. And they have kind of a hoist, like a winch that you'd have be on the front of like a 4-wheel drive or something for pulling, or a cable to a tree to, use the winch to help pull you out of a mud pit or something like that. So it's kind of a winch, but it's called an air tugger. So again, It's got a bunch of cable on it. It runs up into the derrick, maybe 60, 70 feet through a pulley and then down, and it's just this cable, but on the end of it, there's maybe a 15-foot length of chain. And you use that air tugger for lifting all kinds of things up and down on the oil rig, up to the floor, from the ground up to the floor. Anyway, there's a certain way you have to hook up the chains to make them secure. And I wasn't working on the wind wall project, but I was down on the ground doing something. Somebody had hooked up one of these wind walls, being hoisted into the air. It's higher than the floor, so it's probably 35 to 40 feet off the ground. They're going to lower it down into place. And they're swinging it over on kind of a big boom arm.
Okay.
Swinging the wind wall from out, or they chained it up, swinging it over to put it in place. Well, anyway, the chain didn't get hooked up correctly, and the chain came undone, and that wind wall fell.
Okay.
So I'm down on the floor. I'm down on the ground doing something else.
But you're on the floor of the oil rig. You're on the floor. You're not on the ground.
Well, I'm down on the ground.
Okay. But this is coming down onto the floor and it came undone.
They're going to put it down on the floor. So it's about 35 to 40 feet off the ground. This wind wall is at the time. I'm down on the ground, so I'm 40 feet below. This wind wall, the chain came undone, and this wind wall came down, and it hit about 2 feet behind me.
Holy crap.
So it came down on the bottom of it. So, it's this 8 foot by 12 feet high. So it's 12 feet above me, the top of it. But it came down about 2 or 3 feet right behind me. Now, that in itself was pretty miraculous that it missed me, because I would have clearly been killed.
Yeah.
When it hit, it started to tip over to fall on top of me.
Okay.
So we're talking 1,500 pounds of steel that's going to fall on top of me and just crush me. I don't know if it was a little gust of wind or what, but it fell. It started to tip over on me. fell back the other way and fell flat on the ground.
And nobody was hurt.
Nobody was hurt.
Oh my goodness. That's a little creepy deepy.
Anyway, it was just, like I said, I don't know if there was a gust of wind because, I mean, there would be a lot of, there's a lot of surface area that wind could move at 1,200 pounds
Yeah.
second if it
Well,
was strong.
especially in that area of Cokeville is really windy anyway. Like,
Yeah, Wyoming.
yeah, Wyoming. Yeah, good point.
But the point is, I mean, first of all, it missed me. Second of all, it started to fall over on top of me and it got blown or miraculously moved to fall back the other way. So when it fell flat, I was not underneath it.
Wow. What did the other floor hands say? Were they like, holy cow? Like, did anybody
No.
see it?
Well,
I mean, they all saw it, but did they see it almost smash you?
Yeah. Now, when you rig up, when you're running an oil rig, there are 4 different crews.
Mhm.
Like I say, on a camp job, 2 crews come in and 2 crews go out, and they alternate. They work a week on and then a week off. Okay, but when you're rigging up and rigging down, all 4 crews are on location all the time because there's all kinds of nuts and bolts that have to be undone. And I mean, it's a project.
Yeah.
It's huge. Like I say, you've got truckers that are hauling the parts away to the next location. So you've got literally a couple hundred people on location doing various tasks. So later on this same hole, okay, the table where all of the workers are, the driller sits there and he has controls that he can lift the block and tackle up and down to lift the pipes up. And there's special connectors that snap around the pipe. So the pipe comes up and then it swells where the threads where the 2 pipes are screwed together. And then it goes back down to a smaller pipe. Well, they have special fittings that snap around the smaller part of the pipe. So when it bumps up against that collar, it would be called collar, it will just lift the pipe. It won't go out around it. Anyway, when you're drilling, just in the same way that you would put a bit in a drill to drill a piece of wood, the bit looks a lot different, but it still is based on rotating.
Mm-hmm.
So you have this great big bit and it has these cones on it and they have diamonds on it. So it will cut through granite and shale and whatever you're running into as you go down the hole. But to get that to turn, they have a special piece of pipe hooked to the block and tackle that's called a Kelly. And the Kelly is hexagon shaped. And there's a table. So this Kelly goes down. So you've got the floor, but in the middle of the floor, there's what called a table, a part called the table. And it rotates. So there are fittings that Kelly goes through. So those are tied against the Kelly. So it's a hexagonal opening that the Kelly goes through so that as the table turns, it will turn that Kelly and the Kelly is hooked to the pipe. So the pipe 5,000 feet below or 15 or 20,000 feet below is rotating. And that bit is cutting into the
Earth.
the formations that are in the earth. Okay. Well, when you first start digging a hole, it's massive. It's 48 inches wide. And you can dig so deep with a hole that big. And then you put in so that the sides of the hole don't slough in.
So 48 inches doesn't sound like very big hole. That doesn't sound like a massive hole. Do you mean 48 feet?
No, 48 inches across. That's pretty big. I mean, if you're talking a piece of pipe, that's pretty big. But once you get down, let's say 200 feet or 400 feet, the walls of the formation will start to slough in.
Yeah.
Sand and shale and whatever. And so then you line that. You put down a 48-inch liner that's just a big steel pipe. Okay. So you know that 200 feet is no longer going to slough in.
Yeah.
But then you have to graduate down to a smaller pipe and smaller bits.
Okay.
So we'll fit now within that. And then you'll go down another few thousand feet. And then when it starts to slough in, you pull all of that out. Well, you have to pull stuff out all the time because you have to change the bit. It wears out. But you'll put in a new liner. So this new liner is smaller than the first liner. And so now the hole might be 36 inches for another 1,000 feet. Then you have to graduate down to a smaller one. Well, when you get down to 20,000 feet, it's not very big.
Mm-hmm.
So Now, between the floor and the ground,
Yeah.
you've got all this empty space. So the pipe is going through this empty space, and that's filled with what they refer to as blowout protectors. So,
And you're always hooked in all the time to something, so you're not falling off the edge.
well, not when you're working on the floor, but like the derrick hand. I worked up in the derrick. So yeah, I wear like a belt and stuff like that but I'm 100 feet off the ground when I'm doing that. But the floor hands have to be able to move around. But you're just walking upstairs. It's like walking up 3 flights of stairs in an office building, except the stairs are outside.
Okay.
Now, kind of the reason I'm building up to this again, and to have it make some sense. People may have seen like some old Western movies with old wooden derricks, like from Oklahoma or something, and then oil comes shooting out the top.
Yeah.
They call that a gusher.
Yeah.
Okay. On the surface, that seems like a good thing. That's not a good thing.
Okay.
You could hit oil or you could hit natural gas. But if you hit a vein of natural gas, there may be enough pressure in that waiting to escape out of the earth that it will completely, you might have 20,000 feet of pipe in the hole.
Gotcha.
Talking,
That blows it all up and out.
we're talking hundreds of thousands of tons of pipe, and it will just come shooting out the top of the derrick. It will be breaking off everywhere. It will be flying everywhere. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. And if that breaking pipe ignites the gas, it can blow up things for a mile around in every area. It's really, really dangerous. So they have blowout protectors, which are great, big, huge, huge fittings that if the pipe starts to be pushed up the hole, these fittings will come in and they can fit around the collars so the collars can't get out. And if what's worse than that, they can shear the pipe right in two. So the pipe doesn't all come shooting out the hole. And so there's about 3 different kinds of blowout protectors, and they stack on top of each other. And each one of these is maybe 8 to 9 feet high.
Okay. So all 3 of them, you can see that you have 3 blowout protectors from the ground, that is the actual earth, to the floor, which is the main spot where everybody's running around working, the stuff that you see when people, okay.
Right. So those blowout protectors they're attached to the first surface casing, so that if you have to use the blowout protectors, they're not going to shoot out. They're going to be solid. But there's like 3 different kinds of blowout protectors, and they each have a different task depending on what needs to be done. But they're huge.
Okay.
And they're about 8 feet tall. And if you were to wrap around them, it would take 5 guys with their arms stretched out to wrap around one of these things.
Okay.
And so you can put them together. They each have a flat lip on them. It's called a flange. So you've got the bottom lip or the bottom flange of one that attaches to the upper flange of the other one.
Of the next one. Okay.
And they all have holes around them.
Okay.
So you're putting on they might have 30 nuts. 35 nuts. Great. And these nuts are this big.
Which is how big, Dad?
They're about the size of 2 of your fists.
Is one nut?
One nut. Like the nuts that go on your.
So we're talking like these nuts are like 10 inches across.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay. And you've got 36 of those holding those in place.
8 to 10 inches. So you got 30 to 35, 36 of those. So when one of these flanges comes down, what it has on it is it has these threaded studs.
Okay.
And they have to fit down through the holes of the next flange. And then all of the hands, we got 4 or 5 guys working on this. We're spinning on those nuts. And then we use great big torque wrench things to tighten those. I mean, we use wrenches that are like 4 feet long, 5 feet long with handles so that we can really, really push and torque.
Crank it. This is why men work on oil rigs and hardly know women. Very physical job.
Yeah, there are things that women can do that are really good. I mean, they're like a mud logging engineer. There are things women can do, but the manual labor is really manual. I mean, it's really manual.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so I explained earlier how you have to, when you change pipe size, you have to change Well, when you drill down so far, you have to case the hole, then you change the pipe size. When you change the pipe size, you have to change the blowout protectors
Oh, that stinks. Why?
because they're specific to the size of the pipe.
But the top pipe doesn't change at all.
You mean the Kelly that spins?
No, the first pipe you put in, I thought you kept so let's say you've got a hole that's 4 feet across. So we put the pipe in the 4 feet and it's down a few thousand feet, but then I thought we kept this one in and then added another one below it that's a little bit smaller circumference.
What you're talking about is the casing. The casing, the walls of the well from sloughing in.
Okay.
The pipe has to fit in that to rotate.
Okay, I see.
You graduate down to smaller and smaller and smaller pipes.
Okay.
Deeper because you have to case it. Okay. So as the pipe is what's coming up and down in that hole.
The one that you see on TV, like when you see oil rigs going up and down. That's what we're talking about.
Well, that's like a pump check, I think is what you're thinking about.
Okay. Well, disregard that.
But like if they change the bit, they have to pull all of that pipe out of the hole to change it.
Yes.
So the pipe is put together in 30-foot increments called joints, but they pull them out in 100-foot sections. So there's 3 joints together. They unscrew them. They stand them back in the derrick. They pull up the next 100 feet. They unscrew it at that 100-foot mark, stand it back in the derrick. The next one comes up, and you have to do that until you get to the bit, 20,000 feet away.
Okay.
You change the bit, and then you reverse that, and you go back in.
Okay.
So back to the blowout protectors, those are specific to the size of pipe you're using.
Okay. So every time you change the pipe size, what you're going to do is you go further and further down, you're changing your protectors to fit, right?
Yeah.
On that pipe.
So you have to lift the floor out, or not lift the floor, but you have to lift the table out.
Uh-huh.
And
so
then
pull everything up.
And that blowout protector is then undone. Each 3 sections are undone. They hook the block and tackle onto them. They're pulled up. Each section is pulled up through the floor. It's put on a boom. It's pulled up in the space where the table was. It's put on a boom and swung out and lowered down to the ground where a truck will haul it away, but a truck has brought the new piece in.
The smaller piece that's now 36 inches or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So each of those sections, we were changing out the blowout protectors. So we've loosened all of the nuts all the way around one of these flanges.
For the blowout protectors.
The blowout protectors. We're using our hands now. We've got them loosened up.
So real quick, do you take the pipe out first and then change the flange, or do you change the blowout? Or excuse me, do you take the pipe out and then take out the blowout protectors, or do you leave the pipe in and take out the blower protectors and then pull out the pipe?
No, you have to have the pipe out of the well.
Okay.
So there's nothing in the hole.
Okay, gotcha.
And you've pulled all of the pipe out. So now you can change the blowout protectors. So we're spinning the nuts off all of these studs. So the stud is just a section of, thread that fits down between these 2 flanges. So we're spinning the nuts off. The driller has already hooked cables up to the blowout protector to lift the blowout protector off the next section of blowout protectors. But for some reason, as he's pulling up on that, it's binding.
Okay.
It's just lifting off nice and straight. It's sat on there. Somehow it's scattywampus so that when you're pulling on it, it's binding and it's not coming up.
So it comes straight down, and it's almost it's almost like ginormous screws that are poking out, and those go into the holes. So he's trying to pull it off nice and straight, but for whatever reason, there's one of these sticking out screws, which it's not called a screw. What did you call it?
They're called studs.
Studs. Okay, so it's one of these studs that's sticking somewhere.
At least.
And it's not being able to pull off.
All of the studs are still showing through the flange. They're all down there. But someplace there's one of those or 2 or 3 of those are binding. So instead of just being able to pull, maybe the cables weren't hooked up perfectly. So that's not, it's maybe got that blow up.
It's not even. Maybe there's a little bit more lift on one side, making it
exactly.
a little tilted.
It's tilted to one side. So let's come back for just a second to something else we do on oil rigs. You never, ever wear leather gloves. Because leather, if you get your hand caught in a piece of machinery, that leather won't tear. and it can suck you right into the machinery.
Okay.
So always wear jersey gloves.
Okay.
Now, you still might get sucked into the machinery, but there's a really good chance that jersey will
Then
tear.
instead it'll just chop your finger off instead of taking your whole arm.
Instead of pulling your whole body into a piece of machinery, yeah, you might just lose a finger or a hand, or the glove might come off entirely. So you're wearing jersey gloves. So, they're just made of material. Okay. So Kelly is running. He's the driller. He's pulling on this blowout protector. It's not coming. It's not coming. And we're sitting there unscrewing the nuts. We don't want to screw them off all the way, because if the pressure finally releases and that comes up, we want it to block up against those nuts.
Okay.
Because if it just came flying out, that blowout protector might have so much tension on it, it would fly 50 feet into the air.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. We want to make sure that when it finally gives, something is there to stop it so it doesn't flip and come off. And
exactly. So we're taking off some of the nuts, but not all of them. But
they're all loose. They're all loose enough that you should be able to pull and make sure that things are loose and ready to go.
Yeah, they're all loose, and we've got about 5 guys around there trying to get the nuts off, leaving on select ones. So that's something to stop the blowout protector from flying in the air. But we're spinning those nuts off, and Kelly on the block and tackle, they're just called blocks on a rig, but he's continuing to pull, and there's more and more. I mean, I don't know if he was at 20,000 pounds or 30,000 pounds. I don't know how much. I don't remember how much pressure he was pulling. But I've got my fingers on top of those nuts.
Oh, no, Dad.
So my fingers were between the nut. And again, you've got 2 inches of space because the nuts are so big. So my fingers are on top between the nut and the
flange.
That's up above it.
Mm-hmm.
All of a sudden, whatever was binding broke loose.
Mm-hmm.
And that blowout protector just wham up against those nuts with 20 or 30 or 40,000 pounds of pull. Just wham. And of course, the nuts stopped it from
flying up and off.
My hands are on top of those nuts. So by all rights, my fingers should have been completely crushed between the top of the nut and the underside of the flange. Came up and made contact. I jerked my hands away, and those jersey gloves fell off my fingers in dust.
No.
It had turned those jersey gloves completely to dust. There were still jersey gloves on my palms and the back.
Pulverized them.
But where my fingers were was just dust. And I pulled my fingers out, and the dust just fell off my fingers.
Oh my gosh. How have I not heard this story? You're fired. Here I was thinking you're a storyteller and you've never told me this.
Why? I have no explanation as to why that is, because I should have lost all my fingers.
Oh my gosh.
And they weren't even scratched. And like you mentioned earlier, I play piano. My fingers are pretty important to me. I mean, they're important to everybody. But, a pianist has a special affinity to their fingers,
Yes.
But by all rights, I should have lost all my fingers.
Oh my goodness.
Didn't even get scratched, but I pulled out those gloves. And like I say, the part of the gloves that were covering my fingers just fell away in absolute dust.
Holy cow.
Because they were crushed so thoroughly.
Wow. That's wild. That's wild, Dad.
So
I'm glad you still have your fingers. All 10 of them.
So yes, those are my rig stories.
Dad, that's insane. I honestly cannot believe I've never heard that story. I love it. We're going to go ahead and end this episode here. Please join us next time for part 2. And if you're liking these stories, please share this podcast with your friends. See you guys next time.
Thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, God has not ceased to be a God of miracles. And if you have a miracle you'd like to share, please reach out to us via our email at thedivineinourtime@gmail.com. Have a great day.